Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about a really important Terraform concept which is called dependencies. Basically in Terraform we have something called dependencies. When you put some content or resource blocks in .tf file, Terraform reads everything at once, but by default if there are no dependencies between the resources, it will pretty much create all the resources in parallel. However, when there is a link between two resources, that is where dependencies play a key role. Okay, so since Terraform executes resources in parallel, we have to tell it which resources depends on which ones. Okay, so there are two types of dependencies in Terraform. So one is called implicit dependencies and another one is called explicit dependencies. So in this session, let's discuss about implicit dependencies. Now, what do we mean by implicit dependencies? If one resource depends on another resource, for example, if an Elastic IP must be attached to an EC2 instance, so that's where Terraform automatically figures that out through the interpolation. So interpolation means, so there is a resource type -name dot attribute. Okay, so that's where Terraform reads that one value depends on another, and that's what we call it as a implicit dependencies. This avoids manual sequencing and technical hurdles that can cause errors if you try to create dependence resources manually. Okay, so let's take one real-time example to make it clear. I will create a new resource called Elastic IP, which is called EIP. Whenever you create a server in AWS, it gets different types of IPs actually. So which is called public IP and private IP. Public IP means it allows access from the internet, while private IPs are used within your network. Now, AWS public IPs can change when you stop or restart the EC2 instances. However, EIP, which means Elastic IP, remains constant. That means it's stable, it won't change even if you can stop or start the instance. That's why we use Elastic IPs to make sure our servers always keeps the same public IP addresses. So if I create an Elastic IP or EIP and attached it to my EC2 server or my EC2 instance, Terraform will automatically understand, okay, I need to create the EC2 instance first, then assign the Elastic IP. So that is where implicit dependency saves the day. Okay, so now let's take the example and see how to create that EC2 instance and how to create the EIP and attach that IP to it. Okay. So let's take one simple example. So here is the code for implicit dependency. So there are three blocks are there. One is called provider block, another two is a resource block. So for provider block, I have given AWS is the cloud and region I have given AP South 1, and whereas first resource block we created the instance and second resource block used for attach the EIP. Okay, so in this code you can see the value for instance here AWS underscore instance.test.id. That means this EIP block depends on the EC2 instance IDs. Okay, so this is where Terraform knows it has to create the instance first, then attach the Elastic IP. So whenever one resource depends on another resource attribute, Terraform automatically treats that as an implicit dependencies. So these designs help eliminate the pain points of manual ordering and dependency errors. Okay, so when you run some Terraform commands, so I have a code now, I need to run some Terraform commands. So here I have captured that 4 commands. So the first is initialize it, which we can use for Terraform init, and then Terraform validate validates the syntax whether that code is proper or not, then create the plan by using Terraform plan and then applies it. So whenever we create the plan, we can apply that plan, then actual resources will be created, and then we can able to see that output in our AWS console. So that is where, so the EC2 instance will be created first, then attached to the Elastic IP. Okay, and at the same time, when we destroy it, works in the reverse order. So if you destroy that resources, so how the creation will be happening, to reverse it will be destroyed. Okay, so if you see, when we can apply that Terraform destroys that child IP which is called Elastic IP, then the part of EC2 instance. Why? Because if the parent is deleted first, there is no reference left for the child resources. So eventually Terraform ensures proper cleanup too. Okay, so basically implicit dependencies happens automatically through the references, while explicit dependencies are manually declared using depends on keyword. We will see it in the next session how the explicit dependency will work. Okay, so that is where Terraform gives you full control. So if you are keen on understanding the infrastructure automation, dependencies or touch points you must master. Okay, of course there can be a technical hurdles when you are working with that multiple resources, but Terraform dependencies graph handles most of it seamless. Okay, so to summarize this, dependencies are the backbone of resource creation order in Terraform. Implicit happens automatically, explicit gives you manual control. Got it? And your Terraform automatically will really shine. Okay, so remember this, first it will create the instance, then it will create the Elastic IP. First create, then attach, and during the destroy time, first detach and then delete. That's where your infrastructure becomes stable, predictable and scalable. So please take this code and you can practice it as it is. You can execute these commands and you can see the console output. So could you please like, share and subscribe my channel. Thanks for watching.